Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome back to America's Heroes Group. In this segment, we have a roundtable with our partner, the Veteran Legislative Voice. April is Sexual Assault and Autism Awareness Month. Today is Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. And don't forget to see us on Facebook Live. We're live right now, live streaming. See us on Facebook, and also go to YouTube, Google, or search us, americashd.org, and see some of the things we're talking about on our previous shows. And also, when you go to YouTube, like and subscribe so you can get content and also stay up to date on what we're talking about, and comment on what we're talking about so we can stay abreast of what you guys want to hear. So we have our host, Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a familiar voice on the line today. We have Miss Stephanie Kalota, our U.S. Army veteran, Army Reserve First Sergeant First Class, and the founder and creator of the Veterans Legislative Voice. How are you doing, Stephanie?
Doing great.
Good to have you on. So you want to tell us about H.R. 7560, which is the Sexual Harassment Independent Investigative and Prosecution Act. Tell us about that and what's going on.
Okay, so last time I was on, we talked about sexual assault and sexual harassment and a lot of things that have changed. 2 years ago from yesterday, Vanessa Guillen went missing, and that actually started a giant social media storm across the U.S., and it actually instigated 4 congressional hearings, 2 different investigations and commissions, and a bunch of things have come out, and there's been a lot of improvements, but there's still a lot to be done. And I really am excited about the bill that Representative Jackie Spear had introduced 2 days ago. It's H.R. 7560, Sexual Harassment Independent Investigations and Prosecutions Act. This act would actually kind of take over the gap of what the previous bills, the acts have missed. So this would so in the last bills, for everybody's understanding, sexual harassment has made a punitive crime added to the UCMJ chapters. But the thing is that they put in and said that an independent investigator is allowed to investigate. The commander's still in charge here, but they didn't specify who the independent investigator is and how different it is from the current processing. And there's also a few other things that goes in from that.
So you're saying that the bill as presented is not quite where it needs to be? Correct.
So as it is now, and really before this bill, when a person files a formal sexual harassment complaint, the complaint goes to the commander, and it's typically a brigade commander and above would receive the complaint. They will initiate and put in a investigator. This investigator could be anyone. Honestly, they just have to be higher rank than the 2 individuals involved, or 2 or more individuals involved that in the investigation. So it could be a brand new lieutenant that just got a college out of Bolick and have no clue about sexual harassment. Most likely came from a college fraternity where that stuff is also rampant. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to discriminate fraternities. I love you guys. But those type of things, those type of people just don't have the real world experience of what sexual harassment truly is.
So, excuse me. So why is that, though? What happened?
Well, the thing is that they found that male and female anyone with service members define sexual harassment differently. A lot of females define it more often than not. That most actual legal people will classify it as, and men would most likely define it as less than what the legal lines go. And so there's a lot of issues with that on the perceptions of sexual harassment. For it being still under a command and not a trained investigator, a lot of people that are going through sexual harassment don't feel enough trust in the system to actually action on this. So because you're going to put yourself out there and you might face retaliation. And there is a lot of people that have gone through retaliation, and they haven't actually been properly investigated or filed because, hey, you got retaliated against for filing a complaint in the first place. Are you really going to file another complaint about retaliation, especially when you're going through the same chain of command? Mm-hmm. And often the answer is no.
So it's almost like, the way I interpret that, it's almost as if, you're almost going to the same system or people that hurt you to get
Yes.
permission to get some kind of retribution or some kind of compensation or some kind of just justice for what happened to you, just to feel safe.
Yeah. Yes. And it's really hard because the majority of people that they found that, and it's just barely over, it's between 50 and 60%, depending on the studies, the harassers are higher ranking than the victims. Victims are typically in the same age group as sexual assault and sexual harassment. It's the same group. It's 18 to 24. Typically, it's a female and within their first contract. Well, guess which group has the highest attrition rate? They're most likely not to serve more than one contract or not finish their contract. That same exact group.
So is this more stupidity, or is it more just they're just not trying to really make any real changes?
I think that they just don't understand what's really going down in the ground level, because when you're high up in those command levels, it's really hard to get an understanding from the ground level. I used to work at 2-star commands and staff, and I had to fight to get to the units so then I can understand what's really going on at the company and battalion level, so then I can try to make changes from where I'm at. And it can be really hard because the people that you are hearing from the majority of the time is the chain of command. That's who you're going to be talking to. So those people could also be instigating what they call a continuum of harm, because if there is rampant sexual harassment, sexual assault is more likely to occur. And they've actually, I've done the study, and I've had put it out to a couple of other people. I found that only 1% of all people that are sexually harassed in the Army in 2018 actually filed a complaint. 1%. So that's showing a major distrust in the system. And that's one of the reasons why this bill would be so great, because this bill would make sure that it's somebody that has zero relationship with the chain of command, nor the subject or the victim or any of the other people that are involved. And this person would be trained on how to look into these sexual harassments. Sexual harassment in the workplace on the civilian side is often done by trained professionals. Right. That's all they do in HR.
That seems almost obvious. Like, why would you have someone that's like getting advice, legal advice from your butcher or something like that, or like getting a plumber to tell you what's the best way to treat erectile dysfunction or something. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's retarded.
Right.
So why?
Well, the thing is that
why are they still going through this process of taking half-assed measures to try to solve such a serious problem?
It's because they're so used to the system being the way it is. I mean, I know you probably understand 15-6s in the military. If you find something wrong, like supply is missing, basically they would put, hopefully, a logistics person in control of investigation, but the investigation could be anyone to look into where the equipment is missing or why it's broken. I mean, for safety and incidents and accidents, often it's a safety person that has to be trained, but to a certain extent, they don't have to be. So it's a constant culture that they investigate themselves, and that's what they're used to. And so they don't know anything else other than the civilian side, other than the military side.
Yeah, but that's like I said, but that's still, I mean, it defies all common sense. I mean, when I was a mechanic and I was in the military, I never asked a medic to go and fix a truck. I don't say,
right.
Hey, medic, go in there and get that vehicle out of this mired in that mud over there. No, they don't ask me to go and do triage on a soldier in the field. I mean, why? So then I'm a mechanic. I'm not a medic. So why would that's
right.
So this seems like it's more common sense. So then it leans more into, this is not something you really care about enough to really take the time and effort to truly think this thing through. If you can put a missile 1,000 miles away on a target that's 12 feet in diameter, you think you would be able to figure out something that you could figure out at the elementary school level. Right.
And then so these type of things were originally in the bills for the National Defense Authorization Act but it was actually purged out in the process. So that's what happens sometimes. And another thing that happened during this purge was that sexual harassment was originally put in that it would be investigated by a, let me double check my term for this. They would be actually they would be under the control of the special trial counsel, who, like a DA, would receive the information of the investigation and then decide whether to go forward with trial or not, or plea agreements and what have you. The NDA lacks a sexual harassment charge under the control of the special trial counsel. So this bill would also correct that mistake and actually have them under there, because right now, while the investigation would be done outside of the chain of command, it still goes back to the commander on whether to go forward with a trial or not, and the sentencing. There would be a judge that would sentence, but there's like a bunch of things that these commanders have control of.
One of the things too I want people to kind of understand is that, because a lot of critics will say, well, a lot of this is because these cases and a lot of these complaints really aren't that serious. Maybe they're ambiguous, or maybe two people went out on a date or did something. Maybe they were fraternizing, and then or in a relationship that went south, and then all of a sudden now there's some kind of controversy or someone crying a foul. Can you give us some insight as to what types of complaints are we talking about? Are we talking about fraternization? Are we talking about straight up sexual assault? Are we talking about rape? What are we talking about?
All of the above. I mean, it would be unwanted advances in a sexual nature. Because honestly, if I receive a private Kalota had received sexual advances from a staff sergeant, I'm going to feel threatened here, and I'm probably not going to be able to handle the situation. So a lot of times trying to say no is kind of scary. But when you do that, when you actually make a report with these cases, I would feel more trustworthy of the system. That's one of the things is, gosh, it's actually happened to me personally with an instructor that had been flirting with me, and I just tried to keep him at a distance, and then he advanced and tried to do sexual assault. And those things happen a lot. There would be other ones of quid pro quo that, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. It could also be the advances would include not just words or other things. It could also be sending nude pictures to the victim, or actually trying to get nude pictures of the victim. It could also be trying to think of other instances. Actually, it could also include of talking about the sexual in nature in a public place with a person or about a person can also include sexual harassment as well.
This is the thing. These are like the things that you learn when you go to most jobs. Like when I go to my job, like once a year, you got to take a little training module. There's like a little 10-minute video that says like this is like sexual harassment 101. Like don't send nude pictures of your penis around everybody in the platoon. Like that would be obvious to me. But the thing of it is that unfortunately stuff like this happens. And some people blame it on like more of a male culture in the military, where it's predominantly male. Women are the fastest growing demographic in the military. But the problem is that you do have a fraternity type atmosphere in a lot of segments and units in the military. I mean, I've seen it myself firsthand. That's just what it is, because you get a lot of guys unsupervised sometimes, and the perspective of being around a female. And if you do have one or two females in your section, oftentimes they don't say anything when guys are maybe being inappropriate. So but the thing of it is that you would think that there would be. I've never taken a training class when I was in the military about just sexual harassment. In the civilian world, I don't know any company. When you go to McDonald's, they have like a little training video that's like 10 minutes long. You got to watch every year, like things not to do when you're in the workplace, like put your penis in the fryer or something like that, whatever. These are things that you're not supposed to do. Like this, you don't have. You would think that. And I understand that in the real world, it's not necessarily obvious all the time, because depending on where you come from, your frame of reference is, you might think joking around in a sexual nature or maybe making certain types of jokes might be okay or not be so bad, quote unquote. But at the same time, you have to be able to respect other people's boundaries and respect what makes other people comfortable. So but even in the military, when you're dealing with topics of life and death, when you're dealing with topics of warfare, we're dealing with topics of survival, things like that. So I don't know, like I said, I think it seems like an easiest thing to fix, but at the same time I don't understand why we stumble with it so much in the military.
It's a culture problem, and that's one of the things. When I used to teach, because I used to be a SARC myself, a sexual assault response coordinator, when I used to teach the training, I used to go through all of the different instances of sexual harassment and sexual assault, and one of the things that really surprised a lot of the male service members was the instances that are actually qualified for sexual assault, because a lot of times hazing leads to sexual assault. And I would go into detail on the different things, the acts that would happen, and a lot of them were like oh crap, I need to stop doing what the heck I've been doing. You see that in their heads, and it happens because it's such a culture thing, is that they think it's okay. And that's where the continuum of harm happens. A RAND study really had shown how it can actually perpetrate a lot more issues. I mean, not only just sexual harassment and sexual assault. It could lead to suicide. It can lead to DUIs. It can lead to a lot of different things happening. There was a base study that the DOD also did, and they found that when they have toxic leadership and toxic people involved in the work environment, there is going to more likely to be sexual harassment, assault, DUIs, drug issues, suicide, accidents are more likely to happen by 3 or 4 times as much than those units and commands that actually have a good thing going and actually acting properly.
So where do you think we're headed? No, where is this bill right now, and then where is this headed right now?
Well, it was actually introduced 2 days ago. It already has 45 co-sponsors. It's on the way, and if we just keep up on it, it's going to be hopefully a good push. We've got until the end of this congressional session this year until they can actually, the bill will die. And sadly, Representative Jackie Spear is retiring after this session, so she's not running for a re-election this fall. So this might be our only chance for her, at least. Somebody else can try to carry the flag, carry the banner for that. But that's one of the things that we're just hoping for, that push to get you guys to call your representatives, call your senators, ask them to co-sponsor, ask them to pay and to say yes on the bill, just so that they can actually correct these issues. Because what we worry about is all the advances that we have made might not be enough. And when it's not, it shows that it's not enough. Those that oppose those advances will say, see, it didn't work. That's what we're trying to fight against and try to make sure that the right laws are in place, so then we don't have to go back and fix or have to fight those that opposed.
So with this particular bill, your goal is to make sure that it gets fixed. It sounds like, right?
Yes, to fill in the gaps that the NDA law had left.
Okay. And but more importantly, if this bill doesn't, even if as in its current state, is it better to have this bill on the books? If say it goes through all the way and it becomes law, is it better to keep it in its current form versus not having it at all?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, I hope that they would not take anything out. I would actually welcome more additions to it. But yes, the way it is currently, I hope and pray that it'll get passed. That's my big goal for this year. If I can get anything passed this year, this will be it. And I never put myself out there like that, but that's what I'm trying to do.
So say this thing did get passed in its current form, is it easier or is it harder to modify to make it stronger?
Well, once it gets passed, you'll have to go through the entire bill process again. Okay. So that's the reason why it was so hard when NDA passed without these details in it, because then we would have to start the process all over again to then get it introduced, passed in the committees, and then passed in each chamber of Capitol Hill. So trying to get it as is the most preferable.
And what's the temperature like? Are people receptive to it, or are people kind of oblivious to it? What are people saying about this bill?
Some are, especially those that are not too understanding on the military justice system, because when the NDA passed, everybody celebrated. But those that understand the system were like, no, you were so close to getting it perfect, because we were happy the way it was. And so that's one of the things that we are trying to show people to understand. I will say that majority of those that are favoring this type of bill and this wording are Democrats. So with our fingers crossed with the majority in the House and barely the majority in the Senate, we're hoping that we can actually get that to pass, because it is mostly Democrats that do vote and co-sponsor for this type of bill.
Mm-hmm. Now, one more time before we run out of time, tell us, how do we connect with the Veterans Legislative Voice? Give us your social media information and also any numbers you want to give us.
Yeah, so Veterans Legislative Voice, I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The website is VETS, V-E-T-S, legislativevoice.org. And I'm also writing for you guys weekly on the column for the Chicago Crusader. Excited about it.
That's great. Appreciate that. So then This information about HR 7560, that is going to be on your website also. Is that right?
Yes, I should have that done tonight, so you guys should actually be seeing that soon.
Okay, I appreciate that. This is really important that you bring this up to people's attention, and then also letting people know and especially if civilians understand, what military life is like, and also some of the challenges, particularly with sexual assault and also with the culture of the military. Not to say that that aren't great things that are being done, not that women aren't doing great jobs in the military and being recognized for the work that they do, but there still are some pieces in the military that need to be addressed and fixed for men and women.
Yes, and the thing is that those victims that actually do experience sexual harassment and sexual assault, male and female, they're more likely to be homeless. They're more likely to be alcoholics and drug addicts. They're more likely to have a myriad of other issues than just their mental health, because the mental health affects everything in the body, in the person's life. They're more likely to be divorced. They're more likely to be on their own. And for the women, they're more likely to have kids while they're homeless, and that's even a more additional problem when that happens.
Now, as an aside, do you see the military, either the UCMJ being written or modified, or maybe the culture changing to a point where even any kind of contact or socialization between men and women or two different partners of any kind in the military where relationships are discouraged altogether?
That one's hard to say. It's almost like saying that there will never be military sexual trauma ever in the military. To me, it's always going to happen. There's always going to be a leader that's going to perpetuate and allow things to go on. It's up to us to really try to fix that and call them out and file complaints, file reports, try to get these people at least facing justice and correcting these issues. This was the thing that I fought the entire time, and I was in the Army Reserve, was because when I saw myself had issues and had run through a lot of problems, I made sure that it didn't happen to any of my soldiers. And so that's what I'm asking for a lot of people, is try to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else.
Mm-hmm. But where do we draw that line between a healthy relationship to abuse?
It's also, well, actually, there's a lot of red flags that have been going out there now. I've been really listening to podcasts, which is crazy, but then a lot of things that people have been understanding about toxic relationships and toxic people are the red flags that happen. And usually narcissism is one of the big things that people target out there, but there are red flags now out there for everyone to understand what is the right thing and the wrong thing for a peer, for a superior, for a commander to really ask for. I mean, they shouldn't be asking for, going to a drinks later. I mean, sure, if it's you and a couple of people, that's great. One-on-one can be problematic. If they're calling you at all hours, there's a lot of different things involved in there. And what I also hate about these type of things is that it can go on the reverse side. If there is a male and female team that work well together, often people assume that they are sleeping together. Mm-hmm. So we have to really be cognizant of the issues that can happen with those type things, and really trying to see those red flags out there.
I think that's good information. I really appreciate that. So I think you're doing great work. I think we got to basically do a lot more groundwork as far as getting information out there, and also making sure that people go to the websites, find out about HR 7560. Also, go to americashg.org and make sure you go onto our website to get information, look at past videos, and go to Facebook and YouTube and see what we're talking about, so you can understand and get a deeper understanding to what these issues and topics are all about. And also, thank you, Stephanie, for your time. I really appreciate the information you always bring to us every month and every week. You do a lot of great work.
Thank you so much.
She does. That's why she's our partner of Veteran Legislative
I think your mic is off, Glenda. Glenda's in the studio with us now. She wants to say hi to you, Stephanie.
Hi, Steph. Always, girl. Great job. You bring excellence to another level. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's why she's our partner, Veteran Legislative Voice.